All right, so in this video, we are going to do a full review of chapter number 5, which is quadratic expressions. Now, chapter number 5 basically has two main topics. The first topic is expanding and simplifying, and the second topic is factoring. Now, these two processes are the opposite of each other. So if you have a question that's in factored form, you can expand it and turn it into standard form. If you have a question that's in standard form, you can factor it and turn it into standard factored form. So basically, you have two forms: standard and factored. And to go from standard to factored, you factor. And to go from factored back to standard, you expand. So these two processes are just the opposite of each other. Now, expanding and factoring is probably the most important lesson you will learn in grade 10 because you will use it quite often in grade 10, 11, and 12. If you can ace this topic, you can pretty much ace any topic in math in grade 11 and 12. So let's get started. I'm going to start with expanding and complete all of expanding first, and then we'll go to factoring. We expand with a rule called FOIL, where F just stands for first, O stands for outside, I stands for inside, and L stands for last. So I'll show you exactly what I mean by this by doing some questions now. Let's start with the first question, which is pretty simple. It's x plus 3 times x times 5. This is factored form, and we want to expand this. So we're going to expand with FOIL over here. So first means multiply the first two terms. X times x is x squared. Outside means multiply the two outside terms. X times 5 is 5x. Inside means multiply the two inside terms. So 3 times x is 3x. And last means multiply the two last terms. 3 times 5 is 15. Then we just want to combine the two like terms in the middle. So 5x plus 3x is 8x. And we've gone from factored form to standard form. Let's just practice quite a few questions like this to cover pretty much everything that's possible. Over here, we have two positives. In the next question, we're going to have two negative signs. So we have x minus 2 times x minus 4. So same process. I'm going to do FOIL, but I'm going to do it a bit quicker. So I have x squared minus 4x minus 2x. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. I'll combine these two middle terms. Negative 4 minus 2 is just negative 6x. Okay, third type of question is when you have mixed signs, but again, pretty much same idea. We have y plus 3 times y minus 4. So if I'm going to do FOIL, y squared, multiply those two, negative 4y, multiply these two plus 3y, multiply these two minus 12, and combine like terms. Negative 4 plus 3 is just negative 1, so it's just negative y in the middle. And then you can also have multiple letters, for example. So for example, you could have x plus 7y times x minus 8y. So now we have multiple letters over here, but it's the same process. I'm going to do FOIL. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 8y is negative 8xy. You want to always put the earlier letter first. 7y times x is plus 7xy, and then 7y times negative 8y is negative 56y squared. Then I'll combine the two like terms in the middle. Negative 8 plus 7 is just negative 1. So just negative xy minus 56y squared. Can get a bit more difficult with questions that have a lot of numbers, a lot of constants. So next one, number 5, is 7d plus 5c times 8d minus 6c. Same process, should be simple, but let's do it. So that's going to be 56d squared. 7 times 6 is negative 42 cd plus 40 CD, then multiply these two, negative 30 C squared. Then combine these two like terms in the middle. It's just negative 2 CD minus 30 C squared. We can also have larger equations. For example, we can have 3 times x minus 5 times x plus 6. So now we have a constant out here. Now there are multiple ways to do these questions, but I always FOIL first. So I'm going to do that, but make sure you keep a bracket. That's x squared plus 6x minus 5x minus 30. And then I combine like terms there in the middle. That's just going to be positive 1x. And then I multiply the outside number inside. Distribute the 3 to all 3 terms, and that's going to be my final solution. Let's try another harder one of this. We'll do 2a times 3a plus 4b times 6a plus 7b. Again, I'm going to FOIL out these two brackets first. 3a times 6a is 18a squared plus 21ab plus 24ab plus 28b squared. Then I'll combine the two like terms in the middle. That's just 45ab. Then I'll multiply all these terms by 2a. So 2a times 18a squared is 36a cubed. 2a times 45ab is 90a squared b. And 2a times 28b squared is 56ab squared. All right. Now I'm going to get to some even slightly harder questions. Let's start with the next one over here. What's that? 7, 8. So this one we have x plus 4 times x plus 6 plus x minus 1 times x plus 7. So I picked the easiest of these harder questions. Now if you have a plus sign here, this is pretty easy. We're just going to FOIL out each of them separately. So x squared times x squared plus 6x plus 4x plus 24 plus x squared plus 7x minus x minus 7. Then I'm going to combine like terms over here, x squared plus 10x plus 24. And here is x squared plus 6x minus 7. And then next, I need to get rid of the brackets. Since there's a 1 out here and a plus out here, nothing changes at all in this step. X squared plus 10x plus 24 plus x squared plus 6x minus 7. And last step is to combine like terms. So 2x squared plus 16x plus 17 is the final answer. Let's pick another one that's slightly more difficult. Let's do 3 times 6x minus 2, 6x minus 1 minus 2x minus 3 times 5x plus 6. So again, you want to make sure to keep your brackets now. You have a negative sign here. And I'm going to expand out these two brackets over here first to begin with using my FOIL. So 36x squared minus 6x minus 12x plus 2. And over here, it's going to be 10x squared plus 12x minus 15x minus 18. Then I want to combine my like terms inside the brackets. So 36x squared minus 18x plus 2 minus 10x squared minus 3x minus 18. And then I want to distribute my constants outside into the brackets. So 3 times 36 is 108, I believe. X squared minus 18 times 3 is 54x plus 6. I'm going to distribute this negative to all 3 terms. The negative 10x squared plus 3x plus 18. And I want to combine my like terms. So 108 minus 10 is 98x squared. Negative 54 plus 3 is negative 51x. 6 plus 18 is 24. So that is my final solution for this question. Now we can also have some kind of expansion questions that have exponents. So for example, you can have something like x plus 5 square. This is actually a very simple question. Just don't make the common mistake of like putting the square in and writing x squared plus 5 squared. Instead, make sure to write the bracket out twice and then FOIL it out. Square plus 5x plus 5x plus 25, which is x squared plus 10x plus 25. So that's the only difference. You might see some harder questions like x plus 4 squared minus x minus 4 squared, but it's the same process. You just have to write out the brackets to begin with, FOIL out both brackets. It's going to be a tight squeeze. Then combine like terms. And then get rid of your brackets. Plus 8x minus 16. Make sure to distribute the negative there. That's a very common mistake. And last step is to combine like terms. These two cancel and these two are canceled. So 8x plus 8x is 16x, which is my final solution. So that pretty much covers expanding. Now we're going to go into factoring, which is the opposite process. So let's get another sheet and let's start some factoring questions. Okay, so let's talk a bit about factoring. There are actually 5 types of factoring methods in grade 10 that you need to perfect. The first one is common factoring. The second one is simple trinomial. I'll just call MAN. I'll explain that when we actually get to it. The next one is a complex trinomial, which is MAN 2. That's the method we're going to use to solve. And then you have difference of squares, and you have perfect square. So we're going to learn all these 5 methods in order. I'm going to start with common factoring. We'll start with a really simple question for common factoring. First one is just x squared plus 5x. So when you're doing common factoring, you want to decide what can I divide both of these terms by. Well, I can divide them both by x. So my largest common factor is x, and I'm left with x plus 5. And that is my full solution that's fully factored over there, gone from standard form to factored form. What if I have 3x squared plus 6x? Well, I know I can divide both of these by 3, and I can also divide them both by x. I'll take out 3x, and then I'm going to divide this whole equation by 3x. So 3x squared divided by 3x is just x, and 6x divided by 3x is 2. And if I multiply this back in, I'll just get that solution over there. I'm going to do quite a few of these questions. Let's get into them. Next one is 6x squared plus 4x. My largest common factor here is 2x, and then if I divide this whole equation by 2x, 6x squared divided by 2x is just 3x, and 4x divided by 2x is 2. All right, fourth question. I'm going to stop writing down the numbers as well. I'm just going to write down the questions. Over here, there's no common letter, but there's a common number I can divide these both by, which is 5. If I divide this equation by 5, I'm just left with 3w plus 5z. Right, next one is 12b4 plus 18b squared. So my largest common factor for 12 and 18 is 6. My largest common factor for these two letters is b squared. If I divide 12b4 divided by 6b squared, I just have 2b squared, and 18b squared divided by 6b squared is 3. And next one is going to be 2 and 5 plus 12 and 4 minus 6n cubed. So if I look at these three numbers, my largest common factor is 2. If I look at these three n terms, my largest common factor is n cubed. It's always the lowest exponent. I'm going to divide this whole equation by 2n cubed. Over here, I'll get n squared plus 6n minus 3. All right, let's take it up a notch. Let's have multiple letters. We now have 14x squared y plus 16x y cubed. So my common factors for my numbers is 2. And for the x term, my common factor is x. And for the y term, my common factor is y. Now I'll divide this whole equation by 2xy. I'm just left with 7x plus 8y squared. Okay, x squared divided by x, you're just left with an x. Y and y cancel for the first term. X and x cancel for the second term. Y cubed divided by y is y squared. Let's jump to a harder one. We have 4n squared p cubed plus 10n4 p squared minus 12n cubed p squared. Let's look at the three numbers first. My common factor is 2. Let's look at the letters. I have n squared, n4, and n3. So n squared is the smallest one. And p cubed, p squared, p squared, p squared is the smallest one. 4 divided by 2 is 2. N squared divided by n squared cancels. P cubed divided by p squared is p. 10 divided by 2 is 5. N4 divided by n squared is n squared. P squared divided by p squared just cancels. 12 divided by 2 is 6. N cubed divided by n squared is n. P squared divided by p squared cancels. So that is my final solution. Okay, so that is common factoring. Next, we're going to go into factoring by grouping, which is a version of common factoring. We're going to start with some simple questions first. So if I have 3x times x plus 8 plus 5 times x plus 8, I know this looks complicated, but I can common factor out this bracket. So if I common factor out x plus 8, basically these two brackets, I'm left with whatever's on the outside, which is 3x plus 5. We'll do another one really quick. If I have 4s times r plus u minus t times r plus u, as long as the brackets are completely perfectly identical, you can common factor it out, r plus u, and you're left with the outsides, which is 4s minus t. So now we get into 4-term questions, mx plus my plus 2x plus 2y. Whenever you have 4 terms, you want to factor by grouping. You want to put a dotted line in the middle. You want to common factor each side separately. My common factor here is m, and I'm left with x plus y. And over here, my common factor is 2, and I'm also left with x plus y. And then I can common factor out x plus y, and I'm just left with the outsides, which is m plus 2. That's what we did in the previous question. So this middle step here is basically this previous question. And all these steps here will be used in man method too. So it's the middle steps in those questions. I'll do one more of this. So 6x squared plus 9x minus 2x minus 3. So over here, my common factor is 3x, and I'm left with, you can also put a line in the middle to help. 2x plus 3, and over here my common factor is just -1. You always have to take the same sign as this. If you factor out -1, this will switch to 2x plus 3. My brackets will match. And then I can factor out 2x plus 3, and I'm left with 3x minus 1. So that's how you factor by grouping. We're going to go to the next factoring method, which is basically simple trinomials or man method 1. Okay, so a trinomial is just 3 terms. It's a quadratic equation. The first question we're going to start with is x squared plus 7x plus 10. So this is a trinomial. It's simple because there's no number in front. So I'm going to write man here. M is the last number, which is 10. A is the middle number, which is 7. M stands for multiplication, A stands for addition, N stands for two numbers that multiply to 10 and add to 7. So you always want to think of two numbers that multiply to 10. In this case, it's 2 and 5 because 2 times 5 is 10, 2 plus 5 is 7. Once I get my two numbers, I can write this in factored form as x plus 2 times x plus 5, and that's my final solution. And this one was easy because everything was positive. But what if things start to become negative? Let's say, for example, I have y squared minus 5y plus 4. Now my m here is positive 4 and my a is negative 5. So if I'm thinking about this, if I'm multiplying two numbers to get a positive, but I'm adding them to get a negative, both my numbers have to be negatives. So just remember, if your multiplication is positive, addition is negative, both your numbers are negative. What are two numbers that multiply to 4? 2 and 2 don't give me 5 if I add them, but 4 and 1 give me 5, so I know it's negative 4 and negative 1. So my solution here is y minus 1 times y minus 4. Doesn't matter which way you write it, same thing. Okay, sometimes you can also get a mix. For example, you can get a squared minus 3a minus 10. So now we have both of them as negative signs. I'll do this again. My multiplication is now negative 10. My addition is negative 3. And if I want to multiply to get to a negative number, I know that one number has to be positive and the other has to be negative. Now, if my addition is negative, it means that the bigger number has to be negative. So think of two numbers that multiply to 10, 5 times 2. And since my addition is negative, the bigger number has to be negative. So it's negative 5 and positive 2. So my solution is a plus 2 times a minus 5. And let's try another one. So x squared plus x minus 42. So in this one, similar to the last one, my multiplication is negative. My addition is positive in this one. So same idea here. I need a positive and a negative number to get a negative multiplication. But since my addition is positive, my bigger number has to be positive. In this case, it's 7 times 6 is 42, and the bigger number has to be positive. So x plus 7 times x minus 6 is my solution. Now, the next thing we're going to do, we're still on the same topic of factoring. We're going to do combination questions. And right now we're going to do combination questions of common factor and simple trinomial. But before that, I want to note down the most important rule in factoring. Anytime you do a factoring question, the first step is to always look for a common factor. Okay, and I'm going to do a ton of these questions that apply this rule throughout the rest of this video. I'm going to show you the first one right now. So 3x squared plus 12x plus 9. Now you might think this is a complex trinomial because there's a number here. But what you notice is that you can actually common factor out a 3, left with x squared plus 4x plus 3. And on the inside here is now a simple trinomial that I can factor with my man method. So what multiplies to 3 and adds to 4? It's 1 and 3. So I'll leave my common factor out there. My solution is x plus 1 times x plus 3. So just make sure that you always check for a common factor. It's going to show up again in this video at some point. I'll do one more practice question of this as well. I'll do 4s squared minus 8s minus 32. So over here, we have a common factor of 4s squared minus 2s minus 8. And I'm going to get into my man method. So -8, -2. Two numbers are -4 and +2. So 4s minus 4s plus 2 is my final solution. Okay, the next type of question, still a simple trinomial, but now you can have multiple letters. So for example, if you have a squared plus 11ab plus 24b squared. Now we have like the middle term is ab and this is b squared. So if that's the case, it's perfectly fine. It's still a simple trinomial. Let's do our man method. What multiplies to 24 and adds to 11? That's going to be 3 and 8. When I write my final solution, it's going to be a plus 3b and a plus 8b. You have to add these b's at the end because b times b will give me b squared. If you do the FOIL, you'll get ab as the middle terms as well. That's the only difference in these types of questions. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. Okay, now that we've done simple trinomial, let's get into the next method, which is a complex trinomial. So let's do the first question over here. Let's say I have 2x squared plus 7x plus 5. This is a complex trinomial because there's a number here and I cannot common factor it out. So I'm going to do man method 2, which is not the same as the one I just did. My m is the first number times the last number, so 2 times 5 is 10. My a is the middle number, which is 7. And then my two numbers are 2 and 5. So now what you want to do is you can't write your answer instantly. You got to write the first term exactly the same, 2x squared. This middle term is going to break down into your two numbers. So plus 2x plus 5x. I broke down 7x into my two numbers here, 2x and 5x, and then I'll write the last term the same. Now this term turns into a 4-term equation, and we just learned how to do that. We're going to put a line in the middle, and we're going to factor by grouping. So I'll factor out 2x over here, and I'm left with x plus 1. And over here, I will factor out 5, and I'm left with x plus 1. And then I'll just factor out x plus 1, and I'm left with 2x plus 5. And that is my final solution. That's how you factor complex trinomials. I'll do one more example of a complex trinomial. I don't need to do too much practice. 5h squared minus 14h minus 3. Again, no common factor, so let's do man. 5 times -3 is -15. A is -14. My two numbers are -15 and +1. So I have 5h squared minus 15h plus 1h, which is just h, minus 3. I just put my two numbers over here for my h terms. I'll put my line in the middle. I can common factor 5h here, h minus 3. There's no common factor here, so just 1, h minus 3. And I'll common factor out h minus 3, and I'm left with 5h plus 1. And that is my final solution for this one. Now, again, we can get the same type of question, but we can get it with two letters. But again, it's the exact same process. So let's do this question over here. 9x squared minus 9xy minus 4y squared. So let's do our man. There's no common factor over here. So 9 times 4 is -36. A is -9. So my numbers are -12 and +3. So I have 9x squared. Now I have to break down the middle term, which is an xy term. So my two numbers, -12, are going to be xy terms. It's 3xy minus 4y squared. I'm going to squeeze this in now. I'm factoring by grouping. So my common factor for these two is 3x. And I'm left with 3x minus 4y. The common factor for these two there's no common factor with the numbers, there's no common factor with the x, so it's just a positive y. I'm left with 3x minus 4y. I can common factor out 3x minus 4y, and I'm just left with 3x plus y. And that's my final solution for this one. As you can see, same process, just doing it with the multiple letters. And then let's do one last question. Let's say if I have, let me find that last one, 15k squared. No, sorry, it's the wrong one. Another wrong question. 8k squared minus 16k plus 6. So again, this is a complex trinomial, but what you notice is there is a common factor. And we actually have a common factor of 2 here. So remember the common factor out. If you can, be left with 4k squared minus 8k plus 3. But this is still a complex trinomial in here. So I'm going to do my man method again. 4 times 3 is 12. Negative 8 is my a. Two numbers are negative 6 and negative 2. So now I'll use square brackets here to make things easier. 4k square minus 6k minus 2k plus 3. Oops. And then I'll factor by grouping. So I'll put my line in the middle. My common factor for these two is 2k, and I'm left with 2k minus 3. My common factor for these two, there's no common factor, but I want to take this sign, so negative 1, and this going to flip to 2k minus 3. And then I can write my final solution to, now I can just factor out 2k minus 3. I'm left with 2k minus 1, and that is my final solution for this question. So that covers complex trinomials. Now we just have to go into the next method, which is difference of squares. So for difference of squares and perfect square, you have to be able to recognize all square rootable numbers. Let's start with the difference of squares first. Difference of squares is when you have a binomial, when you have two terms, and you have an x squared term and a constant, and the sign has to be a negative. The sign is a positive, you cannot factor, it has to be negative. So to factor this, you just have to do the square root of both these terms. So square root of those is just x minus 4. And then the other factor is going to be the same thing with the opposite sign. It doesn't matter if you write the plus and minus and flip them. As long as one is plus and one is minus, the answer is correct. So let's say I had a tougher one like 4a squared minus 121. Well, let me square root this whole equation. It's just 2a minus 11, 2a plus 11. What if I had 16n squared minus 25? Well, that's just 4n minus 5 times 4n plus 5. I'm just square rooting the equation and writing it twice with opposite signs. You can have it in multiple letters. So m squared minus 49n squared. Same thing. It's just m minus 7n, m plus 7n. And let's do a slightly harder one. Let's do 9k squared minus 36. Now, you might be inclined to say 3k plus 6 and 3k minus 6, but that's wrong. We actually have a common factor of 9 over here. Again, like I said, first rule of any factoring questions is to always look for a common factor. And now I can difference squares this over here. That's just k plus 2 times k minus 2. And let's do one last one, okay, just for practice. 75h squared minus 27g squared. So here I have a common factor of 3, the 25h squared minus 9g squared, and now I can difference of squares this, 5h minus 3g and 5h plus 3g, so this is my final solution. Okay, let's go to the last factoring method, which is basically the last topic for today. It's perfect square. So perfect square looks like a simple or complex trinomial. It looks like both, honestly. It doesn't really matter. Some can look like simple, some can look like complex. So if you did this question like a simple trinomial with your man, you would get the right answer. But perfect square is much quicker. I'm going to teach you how to recognize perfect square. You want to look at your first and your last term and see whether they are square rootable. I can square root both of these terms. The square root of x squared is x, and square root of 36 is 6. Well, then just take the sign from the middle term. So plus, then you want to put a square outside the bracket, and then you want to do a little test. You want to go this times this times this. So x times 6 is 6x. 6x times 2 is 12x. And if that is your middle term, then perfect square is allowed. If it's not your middle term, it means you should actually do man because the answer is different. But if you did man method here, you will get x plus 6 times x plus 6, which is basically x plus 6 squared. I'll do another example of this. I'll do a couple of them because there are a few important ones. Next one is y squared minus 6y plus 9. So this one's pretty simple. Square root of y squared is y. I'm going to take the sign from the middle term. Square root of 9 is 3. Just put a square. Y times negative 3 times 2 is negative 6y. So I know that this is correct for sure. Now, you may be wondering why we learn perfect square if we can just do this with simple or complex trinomials. But let's say I have a slightly harder question like this. 4c squared plus 12c plus 9. You can do complex trinomial man method 2 over here to solve this and do factoring by grouping, but it's so much quicker if you recognize this as a perfect square. Just go 2c plus 3 square. So it saves you a lot of time to learn perfect square. Also, sometimes you can have really big numbers like this. And doing man will take extremely long, and whether you'll even get the right answer or not is debatable. But if you can tell, you can square these two numbers over here. 10c, take the sign from the middle, negative, square root of 81 is 9 for the square. 10c times negative 9 is negative 90, times 2 is negative 180. I know my answer is correct. You can always get common factors in these types of questions as well. So make sure you always watch out for that. For example, you could have something like 100f squared minus 120fg plus 36g squared. I don't know if this is factorable or not, but I do know we have a common factor here, definitely at least a 4, if not a higher number. But I'm pretty sure it's 4. The reason why I picked 4 is because I know 25 is a square rootable number. And this is going to be 30fg, and this is going to be 9. 9 is also a square rootable number, so now you can tell that's fully common factored. That's just 5f, take the sign from the middle, negative, that's just 3g, and then put a square. 5f times negative 3g is negative 15fg, and then times 2 is negative 30fg, so I know my answer is correct. So that covers the review for this entire chapter.